Hello, my name is Tracy Wallach, and welcome to Through the Mirror. I'd love to introduce you to my friend Ben. Hey, Ben.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Oh, I'm so excited to be a part of the Through the Mirror podcast today. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh my God, of course, Ben. So today, Ben and I are going to have a little conversation about anger and resentment.
Uh,
Ben, yeah,
I
go.
could tell you a bunch of things about anger. I'm actually when you told me a little bit, you're like, hey, would you like to talk? I'm like, this will resonate with me very, very highly, right?
Good.
So when I was younger, I used to have anger management issues.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
just growing up, my brother loved to tease me, bully me, and I think that's what used to kind of trigger it. I'll tell you a funny story, Tracy. I had such bad anger issues. There was one time where my mom, she took away a chicken bone from me,
Okay.
and she thought I was choking. I held my breath. I was so mad. I held my breath until I was about to pass out.
Oh, wow.
So it's actually really funny. Eventually, they got a hose and they started spraying
No
me.
way.
Yes.
Where were you? Inside or outside the house?
I was in the house. They would take the sink
From the
hose.
sink hose.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
Yeah, so that happened. I would hold my breath, and so there were yeah. So I would have these anger problems growing up, and my dad eventually actually got me a what are those called? A punching bag. So I remember I'd go
Oh, wow.
downstairs and I'd beat the crap out of that punching bag.
Okay, wait. Back up
Yeah,
a
tell me. Okay,
second.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I'm stuck on the hose thing for a second
Oh
here.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, you're holding your breath. So you're holding it because you're just so pissed off and you're trying not to say something? Is that why?
I guess so. I was
Okay.
pretty young, so
Okay.
yeah, I guess that's what it would be, and I would hold my breath, and my face would turn red, and
Wow.
yeah, so
Well, I guess all I'm thinking about, okay, so I'm a mom. So the first thing that comes to mind, holding your breath. When you give birth to a baby, you want to get him to cry. So you smack them. Like,
oh
well, they probably tap them on the foot.
yeah,
They probably just don't smack 'em.
yeah,
so
yeah.
So instead of smacking you, your mother just used the hose, and that I guess that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely did, and apparently she tried to hit my back a couple of times before,
It
and
worked.
it wasn't working.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
that's a little behind the
No.
scenes.
Okay, keep going. No, that's interesting.
So then my dad would got me this punching bag, and I'd go downstairs and I'd hit that punching bag, and I realized though that my anger would be fueled by my reactions,
Yeah.
right? So my brother, he would always kind of tease me and I would react. And
Figures, huh?
you know,
Wait, is he older or younger than you?
older than me.
Okay. Well, that makes
Hmm.
a lot of sense now.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one of those.
Yeah. So I then kind of just over time realized that he just wanted my reaction. So I would stop reacting. I'd go downstairs and I'd punch the crap out of that
Wow.
punching bag. And so then at an early age in my life, I realized that like a lot of anger, can keep a lot of, I guess that emotion can be excelled with the reaction of it, I guess, right?
Right.
So I just kind of kept going, okay, you know what? Breathe, Ben. There's a lot of things that when you get angry, go ahead and just breathe.
Wow.
That's something that I kind of learned really early.
So you learned that. It wasn't like somebody sat there and said, "Hey, Ben, whenever you're feeling like this, take 3 breaths in, hold it, 3 breaths out." None of that. You kind of just learned it on your own?
Yeah, I definitely
Wow.
did. And I think now that I think about just right now, openly talking with
Right.
you, I think that holding my breath had a factor of it,
That's
right? You don't realize that maybe when I was holding my breath, I wasn't breathing, right?
right.
And so as a kid, I'm not breathing, and then just learning to develop being like, wait a second, maybe if you breathe, you'll be able to get that anger away.
Wow. Okay, so I can't even tell you how many therapists later I figured that one out. And therapists, coaches, you name it. So I didn't learn that, Ben. I didn't learn that at all at an early age. So you had a brother doing that. I had a sister doing that. And I called my sister Pitbull because when my sister realized that I was angry, she would antagonize me and she wouldn't stop. So think about a pit bull, right? So like pit bulls are they grab onto you, and once they latch onto you, they don't let go. And if you try to push them or pull them off or anything, the reaction is for their jaw to get tighter around you. And that's exactly what happened with my sister. And so instead of just feeling angry. And I mean, I would get really angry. I'd become vicious. So I really should have taken anger management classes myself, and I never did. I think it's through all the therapy and the coaching I've taken over the years that kind of helped out. But what started to happen is my anger would happen, and then it would turn into resentment.
Mm.
So, like with your brother, were you feeling the same thing? I mean, did you go through anger and then resentment? But it sounds like you were using a punching bag. So,
Yeah, no, I definitely was. So I guess what developed was, the bullying kind of was there, right? But it also turned to my favor because a lot of the times when I was bullying or being bullied, he would also do it with his friends. Like his
ah,
friends would.
okay.
But instead of reacting, I would somehow come up with maybe a witty comment or something, and his
Oh.
friends would start laughing.
Uh-oh, so that
And
pissed him off,
so
huh?
then that was even worse. And I think that sometimes is why, unfortunately, my brother and I, we have a relationship, but it's not as strong as I would love for it to be. And I think there was a lot of things that maybe I also did that annoyed him.
Yeah.
But I will say there was times where um, I wouldn't resent. I always wanted to have that older brother to be like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you, man. Like, oh, dude, you did this, all that and that. And it's unfortunate that, and again, maybe as a child, I did some things that really upset him. And I'm not saying it's his fault. I would probably say it's probably my fault. Um, but at the same time, I was doing what I had to do to survive, you
Right.
know? So,
No, I totally get that. And it's funny, and you and we're definitely going to have to do another podcast together about siblings.
definitely.
So are you just one of two? So it's you and your brother only, or?
No, so I have another brother and a younger sister.
Oh,
So I
wow.
am that middle child, and um, you know, it yeah, we definitely could go in on siblings just because I think I've learned a lot being that middle child.
Yeah. And I know something about middle child syndrome and that in itself. So let me ask you a question. So your brother would do things to get your goat, to get you going and get you angry. How are you with your sister? Like, did you then do that to her when
No,
you
no,
never did?
no.
Okay.
Me and my sister were very close. I was actually always the mediator because whenever
Mm,
I stopped reacting, my
yes.
brother would then go to her,
Yep.
right? And so he and I would have to I'm like, Emily. I'm sorry. Yeah, Emily.
Wait, you forgot your sister's name.
No, no. I was like, should I say it? But
Totally. Why? It's okay.
it's a
Yeah.
so. I would be like, he's just waiting for the reaction. He just
Yeah.
wants you to react. Just stop reacting. I can't. I can't.
It's so
He's
hard.
pissing me off. I'm like, yeah, I know. He's doing it in that sole purpose.
Yeah,
So
but it's so hard. I mean, so even in everyday life today, at work, I mean, I have a lot of issues with people that just want to provoke,
yeah,
and I'm like you. So I'm very interested now as I've gotten older, I became very interested in understanding why people do what they want to do or why they do what they do. So, I would probably say what I've learned most is they want to egg you on. They want to start something with you. They want to throw you off your game. And anger doesn't look good, it is ugly, you know? And so I think for me, I would say what you told your sister that long ago is such a valuable lesson that took me so long to learn, right? So I think that's commendable that you learned it at such a young age. I have gotten myself in a lot of trouble because I didn't learn it. And for me, again, I get vicious. So think about a fighter, a boxer, okay? And so for me, it's like you throw a punch at me, that's where, my anger starts. At first, I'll kind of be like, whatever, screw you, whatever. And then if you keep coming at me, like my sister, so she was a pit bull, like I said, she kept coming at me. It got to a point, there was one day where she came at me, and like in the past, we would start fighting, and my mom or my dad would break it up. It's like, okay, guys, stop. Because so my sister's like this little 5'1". I'm 5'7". I was probably 5'7", 5'8" back then. I think I shrunk a little over time. But I'm digressing. Okay, so the purpose of this. So my parents would separate us, and this one time, this damn pit bull would not stop screwing with me. I got so angry and so pissed off at her that we started fighting. And my dad turned around, and my mom goes, "David, break up the fight." And my dad's like, "You know what, Betty? No, I'm not going to. Let them fight." And so she went after me. Okay. And it is, I will tell you, with any bully, because I will call it a bully at the time, with any bully, if the bully goes after you, you gotta fight, right? You gotta come at them. And when you do come at them, they'll stop. Except bingo, who was the bully here? Because she was coming after me, and this little damn thing can fight. And it was so scary. I mean, she's so tiny. So the one thing I learned is, how do you stop a bully? Well, in some cases, you don't engage in them, right? Well, in my time at that, and I had to be maybe 12, 13. I'm 5'7". I used my foot. So so if you can imagine this little 5'1" standing across from me, she's coming at me. I stuck my leg out, and I held her back. So here she is, my leg's up against her, and she's trying to throw punches, and she can't reach me because I was so freaking screwed up. But I'll tell you, and right away when that was happening, it's like aggression builds up inside of you. And like you were talking about anger management, man, I was ready to kill her. I was so annoyed and so angry and so frustrated. And all that resentment of over the years of her acting the way she did was just starting to build up inside. Right? I mean, you've had to have
Oh,
resentment.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there's another, that's so funny. It's crazy. It's almost like it has to get physical, and then
Mhm.
once you almost can test each other's power or
Yes.
something, then that's fine. Like I remember my brother was we were in our living room, and he was edging me on, or like he kept like
Mm.
poking me, and I was like, "You know what? Let's do this." And I was like, "We're fighting." Like we started battling. We were, wrestling, whatever. And I remember I got on his back, and I like started choking
Oh,
him.
wow.
And he was like,
Wrestling move.
stood up and was like, "Okay." And then that was when I knew. I was like, "Okay, you know what? I can hold my own." Yeah, he's been kind of preparing me for this, right?
Right.
But there were I mean, we had some fights. Like there was one time we fought on the stairs. We fell down the stairs because we
Oh,
were
God.
fighting. I mean, there was a lot of physical,
Yeah.
not abuse, but like we
No.
we were very, there was a lot
Physical
of physical
siblings.
siblings, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, at the same time, I feel like your siblings are very it's a crucial part, right?
Yeah.
Because it does help you with just everyday life. You're experiencing these things with your siblings, and then you actually go out in the world, and yeah, it's a little different, but you
Mhm.
know they help you, um I guess, not train, but prepare
Right.
for things that might
Sure.
come about,
Sure. And
right?
people, right? Like
Yeah.
the arguments you have with them, you're right. And especially when you're younger, I think the arguments you have with them sort of kind of opens you up to how to handle the everyday world. So I feel bad in a way, for my daughter. She's only one child, so she never had. Although she does have a nephew that's a year and a half older than her, and we won't even get into that right now. That's a whole complete other podcast. Why she has a nephew that's a year and a half older. She does have older siblings, but Kayla didn't grow up having a sibling per se in the house. So I think a lot of the battles she finds now that she's having in high school, even then through middle school, to high school, it probably would have helped her if she had a sibling and a sibling close. So I had, like you had two brothers. You're one of two brothers and a sister. I had two sisters and a brother. My brother and sister are fraternal twins, so they're a year and a half apart from me. And my brother and sister, ironically, don't really get along. And my brother and I do, which is kind of odd. And I'd love to bring a therapist on to talk about that. Three siblings so different. First of all, they all have the same bringing up, same experience, but yet everything's so different. That's again another podcast in its own. And you will definitely hear that through the mirror, because Lord knows with just the name itself, there's so many things that happen through the mirror. That would be one of them. But um, Sean and I got along great. Carrie, I'm like you. I wish I had a better relationship with my sister. I watched my ex and his two kids, daughters get along, and it was beautiful. And I would try to reconnect with my sister. I've reconnected with her so many times, and she still has that pit bull behavior. She still has experiences in her life, and I know we all go through experiences, and we all have these things that happen to us that maybe define who we are. Um, Anger and jealousy being one of them, with her with me. And I think for me, a lot of resentment, because a lot of my time when I was younger was taken up my sister and my dad, and they would argue, and I think every family has that one. And look, I value my sister. She's tough. She's one tough bitch. I mean, like I said, with the physical, I wouldn't screw with her at all. And I made a mistake because I wouldn't screw with her, but it's almost like, like siblings, right? Our job is, we can fight with one another, but we're supposed to protect. We're supposed to protect our sibling if somebody else screws with them.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if anybody messes, yeah, anybody. I mean, I will say this. I mean, my sister and I were so close that there was a boy, and I will never forget this. And like, I think I was eighth grade, or she's 2 years younger than I was in eighth grade. She was in sixth grade, and there was this boy that was like, I think he called my sister a bitch or something like that.
Uh-oh.
And I remember seeing him outside on the field,
Yeah.
and I like confronted him. He was like this little kid. And now that I think about it, it's actually really funny that we're talking about this, but I was with my two other friends, and they're like, dude, we're going to jump. I'm like, no, I'm going to take care of this.
Good for you.
And I went over to him. I put my hand on his like back of his head. I was like, if I ever hear you call my sister that name ever again, or any woman that name.
Good for you.
Because it was something, as a young kid, I feel like in my eyes, I was just like, I want someone to check me if I did that. So I kind of I didn't hurt him. I didn't do anything. I was just like, dude, like.
Scare the shit out of him.
Yeah, I really did. And then I was just very protective of her. My sister's gorgeous. She's beautiful. And I still, to this day, I mean, she's one of my best friends. Like, I used to live with her. I miss the crap out of her. Yeah. She's awesome. But yeah, no, it's just a lot of learning lessons. Like, even with our siblings, we can take that anger and all of the things that we can put it in the real world. Right? I'll just tell you one more story. But definitely. I remember there were bullies in my school, and everyone was afraid of the bullies. But I wasn't, because I have seen it at my house, and I remember standing up to the bully in front of everyone that was in my classroom.
Wow.
And I got a standing ovation. It was insane. Everyone was like, yeah!
It's a movie.
Because there was one kid that had seizures.
Oh, God. Don't tell me he picked on him.
No.
Oh, good.
But that kid had a handler, and her name was Miss Hand. I will remember her for this day. And that bully disrespected her, as an adult, and like
that's a learned behavior.
Yeah, it was, and I don't remember all of it, but I do remember like telling him, I was like, if you keep this up, I'm gonna take this hand and shove it so far up your butt. I'm gonna take this hand and put it down your throat.
Oh my God!
And we're gonna wiggle in. And I literally remember doing that, and everyone was like, yeah!
Oh my God!
I was like fifth grade.
Yeah, very graphic. Very graphic. For
well, yeah. I was like, I didn't know what to say. I remember being so nervous.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to say. I was just like, yeah.
No, and there's nothing you know what? Not again. Like, I love you, Ben. I mean, I do, because you stood up for people, and I love that. I value that. I wish I would have done more of that. And honestly, you stood up for your sister. I wish I would have been the person that stood up for my sister. I didn't. I think I was so angry with my sister, and I resented her so much that I would have probably, and I probably did on numerous occasions. Like, let me give you this quick story, because I think this is important to say. So my sister was very strong. Okay. She wasn't a bully per se with people, but she wouldn't allow people to bully her. And because she wouldn't allow people to bully her, she would often do something that would get my brother and I in trouble. So we were at a very young age. It had to be, I think it was probably middle school, maybe 9, 10 years old. And my sister, my brother, and I were walking home together because there's three of us, and you're talking what, back in the 80s, and my parents just, my mom and dad, we lived in Michigan, and it was from Oak Park. If anybody's familiar with that in the audience, shoot me a hey, I know that area. We could have been neighbors, we could have gone to the same school, but we were walking home, and I remember seeing a gang of people standing together, and my sister just starts walking and she's looking like she's about to walk right through them. And my brother and I are like, what the, I know the F bomb probably came in my mind at that point, but like, what the hell is she doing? And I think my brother Sean said something to her, and I don't really recall. I blocked it out, but I do remember my brother saying something like, Carrie, what are you doing? Let's walk around, And I remember Carrie saying, no, why am I going to walk around? It's, basically she's taking the shortcut, rightfully so, and she should have no problem doing it. But then there's me. I'm in fear mode here. And I'm like, Carrie, I'm going to tell dad, don't do it, whatever. She walked us right in the middle. And the boy stopped her, and started going after her. And I bring this up, and my brother will probably kill me listening to this podcast, but this is where my brother's my hero. And I didn't know this, Ben, until this year. Like just literally a few months ago when I asked my brother this, because it came up in a therapy session. And I asked my brother, what happened? Because I don't remember how we got out of it. I don't know how we got home. All I remember is three girls coming up to me and started to bully me, because back then my mom made a barrette. And for anybody that's of the age of where I'm at, born in the 70s or beyond, back then your mom would make like these barrettes, and they would have like little beads in them and fabric or whatever. I'm not that old, but I just remember this. And the girls asked me for it. Like they got around me in a circle, and they're like, hey, I want your barrette. And it had puffy paint on it that said my name. It was like my mother. It was an attachment of mine. But I was so scared. So I gave him my barrette. That's all I remember. I gave him my barrette. And somehow or another, we got out of it. But Ben, it took me all these years with therapy. And just recently, I'm not even kidding, within 6 months ago, where the therapist brought it up, or probably 4 months ago when I approached my brother. And she said, you remember this, but you don't remember what happened. And I said, I wonder if my brother does. And she goes, would you ask him? I go, no, why would I ask him? Like he doesn't, I can't imagine that my brother had this in the back of his mind all this time. So I did. I called Sean and I said, hey, what happened with this? And he goes, your sister once again opened her mouth. And when she did, the boy said something, and he was about to go after her. And I took the punch. And I go, what do you mean you took the punch? It was either I took the punch or I took the shove. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he took one or the other. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I took it. He goes, what am I going to allow Carrie to get hit? And he goes, and then we got home. I told dad, and he reamed her a new ass. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And I'm sitting here thinking, like right now, Ben, bringing it back up again, like I never saved my sister. Like I never protected my sister. I was so angry and resentful of her still to this day. To think about that, that was probably, 30 plus years ago. And here my brother was going through the same experience as me, and he used to hide all the time. So not hide, I'm sorry, let's not say that. My brother didn't like confrontation. So when my sister would be arguing with my dad, my brother would go into his room, do his own thing. I was the peacekeeper. They used to call me the little politician, because I would try to keep the peace in the family. So my dad would argue with my sister. My mom would get involved. Somehow or another that would break up. And I was one that would jump in and just try to make the peace. Sorry, dad, you're having a bad day or whatever. And I would try to change it. And that's a whole therapy session. And, you're going to meet a great therapist, my trauma therapist, Belda, eventually. And the podcast will be great, because you guys, for all the listeners out there that have experienced this, listen, I'm 51. I'm going to bring it up again. You are never too old, and you don't have to call him a therapist. You don't have to call him a trauma therapist. Call him your coach, because that's really what a therapist is, right? Ben, I don't know if you have a therapist at all, or if you've ever spoken to one.
I haven't, and
Okay.
I think about it all the time. Um, in regards to just like someone to talk to, and to get out all of the thoughts that go in my head. I'm sure it'll do me good, because
Yeah.
I've got a lot of things that I go, but I've also learned, a lot. And not saying I don't think therapy is a good thing. I just I've had to learn a lot on my own, and I feel
Yeah.
like I've gone through things that I have had some very big self like I guess epiphanies or
Yeah.
just
Reflections or
reflections, yeah,
okay.
just of being able to like think about things like, man, I really messed up on that, or I learned from what I just did. Okay, maybe don't trust as hard as
Right.
you do, or
Right.
so but regarding anger, I definitely learned very early with understanding anger. And
Right.
again, I will tell you that if I get angry, it's not a nobody has ever really seen me angry, if
Right.
I'll be honest with you.
Okay,
And
good.
I have an anger side though.
Right.
And recent it sometimes is um, with myself. A
Right.
lot more times now I'm angry at myself. Like if I
Okay.
don't finish something or I don't, I'm like,
Right.
God, Ben, do better. And so um, I will say the anger is not on other people. Like, yeah, we have terrible
Right.
drivers here in South
Oh my
Florida.
God.
It we
Don't get me
can't
started then.
even talk about how bad.
No.
But I'm like, look, I look and I sometimes just say, gosh, I'm blessed that I did not just get hit by that person.
Absolutely.
Right? That person just cut me off. God, I am so, or whatever you believe. Man, I am so grateful
Yeah.
that I did not just get hit by that person.
Oh my
Right?
God. Or you hear about this with drivers and how they get shot in Florida.
Oh,
I mean, we're hearing about that.
that's
It's
crazy.
crazy. We don't even need to go on that tangent,
Yeah, I
but
mean that could go down, but that's a
yeah.
whole nother thing. Is like people are so quick to, and again, another thing that if I could give to your
Yeah.
listeners, like if you are an angry person, you gotta also, in my eyes, think about what someone else is going through, right? Or
Yeah.
what they're doing. Like you have no idea. So
No.
that person that cuts you off, yeah, it could be some kid that's just driving, but it could be someone that's bleeding and has to get to the
Or
hospital,
somebody's dying
or
or his family or anything. You're
exactly,
right.
there could be so many
Yeah.
things. So it's like you think about, instead of going, man, that guy just cut me off, I'm like, man, glad that guy did not hit me,
Right.
I'm good,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of things. And just another thing I could give to your listeners is that appreciate a little bit of the little things, right?
Yeah.
If you appreciate all those little things in life, the bigger things don't hurt you so much, I
Right.
guess.
Well, and you know what too with anger, one of the things I've learned, unfortunately, I have what do they say? Internal disease, dis-ease. A lot of things that people have, like sarcoidosis, is something I have, and I look at it as just a dis-ease. I don't associate myself with it because it doesn't define who I am. That has happened because of the anger and resentment that you hold inside of you. And like, listen, for all our angry listeners out there, first of all of us have anger issues to one degree or not, okay? Or we have resentment to one thing or not. Maybe you found a way to get over it. Maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's meditation, which I've said in my other podcast is a great thing I love to do. Maybe it's going anywhere, yoga, the gym, whatever that helps you out. But please do me a favor, help yourself out with it, okay? It's very important for you to understand anger, if held inside your body, resentment, if held inside your body, will make you sick. You will more than likely get autoimmune diseases. You more than likely can get just the common cold can last so much longer, anything, but you will make yourself sick. And ask any doctor, and I'm not a doctor, but I will tell you from asking a doctor and understanding, it can cause cancer too. Cancer does lay dormant in all of our bodies. That's that I've read, and any doctor that wants to jump on here and, share their thoughts on this, please do so. I'd love for you to email me at through the mirror 24 at gmail.com again, because I just went through four. Through the mirror 24 at gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to do another segment on this to understand what anger can do to the body for sure, because from what I understand, it can cause permanent damage to you. And you know what? Our life is so short, or life is long. You can definitely shorten it by being filled with so much anger. And it's just not something that's good. So where I said to you, and we'll kind of wrap this up, and I'd love to hear a closing thought from you too, but I will tell you with my sister, we still have our challenges. One of the things I'm learning about is boundaries, how to put boundaries around our relationship. Because unfortunately, we didn't have that growing up, and it was fair game and fighting and arguing, and I'm just learning now that I don't have to accept what she says or does, and unfortunately at our age we still have our moments where we argue a lot, but I'm learning now that I don't have to be as forgiving. And I know my parents, my mom especially sometimes wants me to say sorry and move on. I have learned that I don't have to move on without putting boundaries in place. So I want to say that just in closing, quick thought from you on.
Yeah, no, I love that boundaries is very important. I would also just say, when in doubt, smile.
Yeah.
And a little bit
Oh, that's
more,
true.
more smiles around. And honestly, I think there's even a statistic out there is like if you're feeling sad or angry and you do just smile, you'll eventually kind of feel a little bit better.
That
So,
sounds like Annie. Smile, darn you, smile.
yeah, well, it's just crazy because, like, I mean, kill him with kindness or all that
Yeah,
good stuff.
it's
So
so great.
it's something that I started to kind of learn again at an early age, but I think we need more positivity
Yeah,
in this world in just general. And you know, everyone's entitled to have their emotions. It's
absolutely.
all it's all valid. You're all valid,
Mhm.
but it's harder to put those emotions on someone else, right? And
Sure.
and you can't expect everyone to be on that same level that you're at. So you got to always keep that mind open, consider what other people are going through, right? So
Yeah,
that's my
no.
closing.
Absolutely, I love it, and thank you. So listen, if you'd like to be a guest, or maybe you have some questions or want to share information on how you manage anger, again, I would love for you to go ahead and email me at through the mirror24@gmail.com. Also, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And Ben, big thank you to Ben. Not only are you a producer, and I can see we're going to be great friends, you're going to hear a lot from Ben on some of these podcasts or more of my podcasts in the future. And maybe carrying on this conversation a little more, Ben.
Yeah, I would love to. I was gonna say I feel like we kind of only we there's still a lot more that we
The
can
surface.
yeah we can uncover.
Yeah.
So very excited.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. And listen, again, I really appreciate you. If you are going through any anger management problems or anything at all, there's nothing wrong with a coach, a therapist. Thanks for everything. Thanks for joining in. And I can't wait to see you on our next episode of Through the Mirror.